What is going on, comic fam? It's your boy, the Bearded Comic Bro, and I am joined again by Steve Orlando. Welcome back to the show.
It's good to be back.
Man,
Absolutely.
I'm excited to talk to you. Last time you were on the show, it was right before Marauders was dropping, and so much has happened since we've talked. So, like, comic wise, Eisner nominated with the Rainbow Bridge with Steve Fox. Like, talk to me about how things have been going on since last time we talked.
Yeah, Marauders has wrapped. We only introduced 10,000 years of mutant history that people didn't know about. So just a little light like a moose bouche when it comes to additions to comic book lore. We've been hustling, my friend.
Yeah.
Very excited to get the Eisner nomination for Rainbow Bridge. It's been since, if I brush the shit off my shoulder, it's been since 2008 since I've been nominated for an Eisner. Actually, that's not true. I think that Love is Love won one, but I'm one like 350th of that book, so I'm not going to run my mouth about that for a variety of reasons. But to be on a book that's as close to my heart as Rainbow Bridge, and even more so to Fox's heart, because
Yeah.
we are both pet owners, but his family adopts specifically senior animals, so this was a thing that he knew a lot about. It's fucking great. I can't lie to you. The Eisner nomination, the Ringo nomination, again for a book that not only was the launch book of Aftershocks, young adult line,
Yeah.
but it's something that we really felt. I mean, we feel passionate about every book we do, of course, or we wouldn't be doing it. However, you feel passionate in different ways, right? Like, and Rainbow Bridge is really close to us, so very exciting. And since then, I've been prepping Iceman, and that stuff is going out there. We've been doing Scarlet Witch. We've been doing stuff with Mad Cave, which I've loved working for. We even did like a little bit of a naughty short story in Sweet Paprika, Black, White, and Pink, which I was really, really excited about a couple months ago. And that's a book that I localized for my friends at Studio Arancha. Other than Mirka, who writes the book, I've touched, I've worked on every single page of that book. So to be able to do something original in that world, super, super exciting. And I guess it's a little teaser. You might be seeing more of me and the Sweet Paprika universe, if you will.
Nice. Yeah, you've definitely been staying busy. I know with Exorcist Never Die, with Mad Cave out right now, Marauders has wrapped up, and the first trade came out. The second one hasn't come out yet, has it? Second trade of Marauders?
It is not come out yet, but
Okay.
through the wonder of the internet, I think I can tell you when it's due out. Um, using my typing abilities. It appears, well, I don't know, am I maybe not getting one? Oh no, here we are. Looks like Amazon August 29th.
Okay.
So that would probably mean comic stores about a week before,
Yeah.
if not 2 weeks before.
So, yeah, I've had so much fun talking to you last time. Like I said, I reached out to you and wanted to talk about Project Patreon, and then we were talking a lot about Marauders, and you have quickly come up onto my pull list as when I see your name attached to a book, I'm like, I gotta check it out. So when Scarlet Witch came out, I was like, well, let's do this. So if someone hasn't gotten to check out Scarlet Witch yet, which I don't know what they're doing, but what was your take on this arc and this series that you're working on?
Looking forward, like this is which is how I always want comics to be, but it doesn't always work out for any number of reasons. But with Wanda specifically, now first of all, like when Marvel puts you in a book, Russell Dauterman's on covers, Sarah Pichelli is on interiors. There's a little bit of trepidation because you're working with arguably some of the greatest working artists in comics today. And the thing is like, as a creator, you already bring everything you can to every project. Otherwise, you're an asshole, right? Because as you just said, and as we talk about, every character is someone's favorite character, so you
Right.
can't just like fuck around on any book. But now you're like, all right, I've already brought everything I can. Now I got to find something more, right? When it comes to Russell and Sarah, folks like that. The idea, and that's where Scarlet Witch comes from, like if we're already giving 110%, somehow you have to find 130%. It's like DBZ type math. But we wanted to look forward.
Yeah.
Wanda is a character that has been almost defined by her suffering and tribulations over the past, I'll even say like 20 years, if not longer. of real human time, of course. In comics
Yeah.
time, who knows? Because who knows how long anything takes in comics.
Right.
You know, I think Reed Richards is maybe 40 now, you know, maybe. But that being said, like she's been through a lot.
Yeah.
And to me, that makes her, despite her massive, massive power level, one of the most relatable characters in the Marvel universe. And here's why, because in real life, you know, our journeys are not necessarily narrative hero journeys. They're not necessarily just one climb up a hill. Um, we backslide, we make mistakes, you know, and then we dust ourselves off and kick ourselves in the ass and keep going. Now that's what Wanda's done, but it's comics, so of course her mistakes are catastrophic and cataclysmic, and
Right.
the scale is much different than if we like, you know, leave the wet ones open in the bathroom. But that being said, like that's the one-to-one of comics. You take something that's human and relatable and you shoot it through this prism of comics madness, right? So to me, Wanda and the push to find happiness, to reset, to start fresh, is one of the most human drives in the Marvel universe. I think she's a perfect character for new readers because who can't relate to wanting to better
Yeah.
themselves, to overcome and make good on the mistakes that they've made, because we've all made them, right? Um, so I found, like, to me the key was, yes, we have to turn that page, and then and then the question becomes, how can we challenge that? Because much like again in real life, like the pages keep turning, right? So we have moved on from some of the classic anchors, things like Cathan, things like the situation with House of M, you know, where she went from being the pretender to being the redeemer.
Right.
Great work by the folks on Trial of Magneto. But now it's like we have to find new challenges. And you'll see that in Scarlet Witch, and you'll see that going forward into 2024. We were just talking about what's coming down the pike for Wanda.
Yeah. Well, you know, as someone, this is kind of my first probably series that I've really invested in Scarlet Witch with dealing with Wanda and stuff. And it's been a great introduction, introductory character for me of kind of getting to know, because it's funny, like with comics, you have these characters who are so not relatable sometimes because they got these massive power fields. But I feel like the conversations that you have created with Wanda and Darcy so often of dealing with emotion, dealing with trauma, how to process that. And there was this part in issue 3 where there's a conversation going, and just as the line is, Wanda, you are enough. Like, just talking about how trying to do as much as you can. It just feels like a very human life book that, like, this is stuff that we all deal with and struggle with, and thoughts that we process and struggle with.
Well, it's very heartening to me, my friend. Like the thing is, you know, I may not be a normative reader. I'm not talking about me as a creator, me as a reader.
Yeah.
I've always, you know, it's not a secret that we approach, because of her power level, we kind of approach the Scarlet Witch book. I say it all the time, like I would approach writing like All-Star Superman, for example. Like that is our main inspiration. And the thing is you know, there's no shade intended for folks who feel the opposite, but to me, I've always sort of like bristled at the idea that between the two icons at the other company, um, I'm leaving out Wonder Woman because and we'll be here for 3 hours if I talk about Wonder Woman, because I love her. That folks say that Superman is the unrelatable one and Batman is the relatable one because he's just a man. And I feel like that, I hesitate to talk about it, but I'll say my own opinion and just say that it's only my opinion. I feel like that's very surface level, because at the same time, yes, Superman has much more power on the back of a trading card, but what is more relatable, at the end of the day? You know, someone who was raised by at most middle class farmers in the Midwest and was told, look, you're not better than anybody else. You just have to do as much as you can for whoever you can. And of course, what he can do is much more than any of us. Or a dude who is a multi-billionaire, you know, like, which is actually more relatable beyond the surface level of this guy is immortal. And yes, this dude is bulletproof, right? When you get to the heart of the characters, I've always thought that Superman is more relatable because for all his power, right? Like the iconic scene is like he can't save his dad. For everything Superman can do, he can't save his father from having a heart attack. And to me, like in that moment, that makes him more relatable than anything Batman's ever done. Like if I'm just being real, because all the other stuff is window dressing. But at the end of the day, he's just like us. For everything he wants to do and all of his aspirations, self delusions, he can't save his own father. He's still got to go to that funeral. And I think that's Wanda, like to bring it back around.
Yeah.
Yes, of course, snap and suddenly physics changes and reality changes, and she can do all these things. But for all that shit, right? She still wasn't there when her fucking father died, like when Magneto died. Like, to me, that's the realest thing, and it's in the starkest contrast because of her on paper power level. For all these things, she can't do the things that we can't do.
Right.
She can't. And I do think that that's really special about her. So for you to say that is very heartening for me. That's the long answer.
Well, good. Well, it is. It is just. I found myself enjoying this series so much because of. I listen. I love comic books, right? I love the bombastic, the fights, the overarching. Who's powerful, who can do more. But some of those conversations that she has with the characters that you bring in, because you've been able to bring in a lot of fun characters who have connections with Wanda and stuff, or the sit down over the tea with Darcy of just having those conversations. I found myself more drawn to those moments because I'm like, wow, this is there's parts of me and things that I've struggled with as a human in this book, and I'm like, man, that's so cool. So well
And I
done.
think that, listen, like you can't, on some level, you can't work in comics without delusions of grandeur. And at the end of the day, like we're still bound by the same, like we're still bound by the same rules as anyone else. So like it's like it is a memento mori for me to work on Scarlet Witch.
Yeah.
But I think that's good, and the things that you're saying to me, those are the real moments. Like Wanda doing slam bang, I'm gonna like shoot the moon into Mars and like fuck you to the in-betweener. I don't know, I'm just pulling things out of my ass. That's cool. Of course, like that's what we're here for. But the moments where you see who she really is how she overcomes the things that you can't just snap away. And you'll see that going forward in the next arc. Like it's not a secret for folks who are up to date that someone with magnetic powers has returned in the book, and I feel like there's no better pressure point for her for the reasons we just discussed.
Yeah.
Wanda is still limited by her mortal perceptions, even if she has powers that go beyond mortal ken. And at the end of the day, we'll never know if she could have saved her father from Uranus on Mars. We'll never know, and she'll never know. All she knows is that she wasn't there and
Yeah.
that she never got to say goodbye. To me, like again, that's the most human thing. All the other stuff, window dressing.
Yeah.
That's the most human thing of all.
Well, when I saw that reveal, I'm like, yes, let's go. So I'm excited. It's just been a great series so far. How did this series come about? With I know you've been working with Marvel with Marauders and stuff like that. Is this something that Marvel was approached you and said, hey, would you be interested in Scarlet Witch, or were you like, hey, I've got an idea of something that would be really cool?
Well, I mean, I've been thanks to Miss Rona, especially Darkhold. So Darkhold, the book was actually my first contracted Marvel work. It was not my first chronological work, again due to the ongoing or the formerly ongoing Global Bastard. As my friends at Water Culture Wrestling say, that's how I take my shower every morning, with wrestling news. Um, but I do feel like this special connection to the Scarlet Witch because it was my first contracted Marvel work. And so there was this idea with the Darkhold that we were going to turn the page.
Yeah.
What came after was like a little bit of happenstance and right place, right time, but then you have to obviously have an idea and sell folks on it. That's just comics, right?
Right.
Like, but it was clear from the point of view, myself and also Leah on Trial of Magneto, we wanted to move Wanda beyond these things. And when they reached out about maybe doing that in a series of its own, yeah, of course I would jump at it, because for the reasons we just discussed, I've always found Wanda to be a very relatable character, even though on the surface it would seem the opposite.
Right.
And so and we went into Darkhold with the idea, like, if we never get to work on Scarlet Witch again, we're going to at least get her this. We're going to have that final page splash first saying I'm finally free. I'm free of Chthon. To come back and do even more, like, yeah, we'll jump at the chance. Sometimes you get offered a book and you have to find your way in. That's just part of the job. But with Wanda, again, this is just like I feel connected to the character because I myself am fallible, I'm imperfect, and so is she. And
Right.
that's kind of actually unlike a lot of other characters, even though it's the Marvel model, like that has always been like Peter Parker's Spider-Man, but he can't make rent, he can't get the girl, et cetera, et cetera. But that's not every character. It's not every character in the hero's journey, but it is Wanda. The difference, of course, is that you know, Peter fucks up and one burglar gets away, and of course wreaks havoc in his family. Wanda fucks up and suddenly there's a global catastrophe. But that only adds stakes to her personal journey.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And you mentioned the team. Holy cow, what a team you're working on. Is that something that you had a say in or like help trying to put together, or Marvel kind of helped guide that process along too, because it is a stellar team.
I mean, I could not have asked for a better set of collaborators, and that extends to folks like Carlos Nieto and Lorenzo Tomatia, who are working on the annual and working on support for Sarah on the second arc, because she has had some amazing personal news that is on her Instagram, and that's for folks to go and investigate on their own. But I would not listen. I collaboration is part of comics. So it's actually relatively rare, unless it's like an original pitch or like a pitch that are either an original concept or a pitch that originates with me. Like if you look at like Martian Manhunter at DC Comics, I had been hustling for that book and politicking for that book for almost the entire duration of my time there. Now I knew I wanted to do that with Riley, because he's one of the best collaborators I've ever had, and we just get each other.
Right.
But at the same time, I look at comics as a challenge, as a collaboration. So, and I want to be part of the team, and that also means because the team doesn't start with me, the team starts with the folks that own the characters. So they came to me with the idea, unlicensed IP rather.
Yeah.
So they came to me with the idea of working on Scarlet Witch, and then they said, "Hey, what about Sarah?" Now, only a fucking madman would say no, right? So I was like, yes, absolutely. In fact, I need to go back and as I said, find a way to give 150%. And the same goes for Russell. I mean, these are both bucket list co-creators for me, bucket list collaborators. I'm extremely lucky that that list is getting pretty fucking short, my friend. So now I just need to hold up my end and keep giving them exciting stuff to draw for as long as possible.
Yeah. Well, it is always, I just love to find out that process of kind of things, because like the process of collaboration, you said, that's what comics is. And it's so interesting to see, how things formulate out of something. Like, for example, one of the things I really appreciated was from this run so far, issue 3, y'all have like half the issue is full pages, like for where they're going through this journey. And I was curious of like, is that something that like you're able to pitch to the to the artist, or is that something that they kind of pitch to you? Like, how does stuff like that when you divert from a typical formation of a book?
Well, I mean, we knew what SAR could do, I guess.
Yeah.
So yes, you have to pitch it to an extent, but at the same time, like we were 3 issues in and we knew that she was doing, I mean, it's hard to say she's doing the work of her career because she's never not delivering, but
Right.
she was delivering on another level. So it was more like, yes, I mean, like I was like, listen, we need to give her an open canvas. I mean, the idea behind issue 3 was not just because we were doing like Sword and Planet type of stuff, not just to allude to like the Prince Valiant type comics of which I'll say to be like a complete jackass. But that was a bonus for me because I love that shit. I love newspaper strip comics and stuff like that. But it was also about, as you had hinted at, just letting Sarah cut loose and do the wildest stuff possible, giving her the biggest canvas possible. And it wasn't the whole issue. Like we got like that. That's the type of things that are discussion. Like how much do we do it, and versus how much do we offer traditional comics. We do want people to feel like they're getting a comic book, and hopefully we found the right balance. But no, this was all about like letting Sarah cut loose and go to town on the biggest, most exciting images possible. To me, it shouldn't surprise folks for me to say that, and I've said it before, like the artistic co-creators, those are your first audience. So once we saw how much she was like getting into the world of the Scarlet Witch and Wanda Maximoff. It was just about letting her run wild, and hopefully we get to do it again.
Yeah. Well, it's so cool to see that. And what I was another thing that reading this, it pops up of my mind is you have so many characters coming into this world that Wanda deals with, and one that I feel like is our first time in the 616 is in comic form is seeing Darcy in comics. Is that true, or am I missing something before?
No, it's absolutely true. It's to pull back the curtain a little bit, I suppose. I was already this was a different character. I was at least somewhere else. But as we got into the first issue, look, it's also not a secret that the more buzz around a comic, the better. So as we got on the first issue, we realized that this character that I was writing, and by the way, it's the exact character that you see on the page. It was Darcy, like my sense of humor tends to be somewhat aligned with that of, if not Kat Dennings, the character she plays in the MCU. I myself have been, I mean, I came out of the womb as a cynic. I was like, shit, 9 months, get me the fuck out. So like, could you have air conditioned that shit, mom? So it was just like that moment of kismet where actually I'll credit Caitlin Linvet and Alana Smith, who are editing the book. They said, well, we should just make this Darcy. There's no downside. You're already writing a voice that is very similar to Darcy. Let's guide it a little bit and let's get even more eyes on this book, so everybody wins. So that was, I hesitate to say happy accident because that feels like some Bob Ross shit, but that is kind of what it was.
So when you're bringing in characters, how much do you have to, because I know like when you were working with X-Men, you had mentioned that you met with a bunch of the other X-Men creators every couple of weeks and kind of said like who's doing what, who's going where with these, like when you, how much, I guess, can you talk about too, but like legal red tape do you have to deal with, or higher ups with your editors do you have to go with, of deciding which characters you can pull into this universe that you're writing?
Well, I mean, honest with you, that is often an answer for folks with a legal degree. If it comes from, if a character originates outside comics, there is a lot of sorcery involved
Okay.
that is often outside of our purview. But what is inside of our purview is to ask. And there are characters that your favorite creators ask about frequently. Max Schreck is one of them. For whatever reason, we've never been able to get him into a book from Batman Returns. But usually it works out.
Yeah.
Things like Roxy Rocket. I mean, the best example are things like Montoya and Harley Quinn, but also Coulson, of course, like came
Yep.
in. So we ask, and we ask when it makes sense. Like if there's I I can only speak for myself. I very rarely encountered a mandate to like make things rhyme with the MCU or or like fist fucking things from cartoons or television or film. But I have often brought it up when it seems to make sense to what's already happening, because
Okay.
as we said about like Darcy, there's no downside. If it fits the story you're already telling, all that means is folks feeling more included and more eyes on the book. So if you see stuff in my work, at least it's usually because it made sense anyway. Like
Yeah.
doing a pitch right now that's Wanda related, and there are elements drawn. I'm trying to like dance around without spoiling for the villains, but there are elements that we looked at it, or I looked at it, and I was like, well, there's no reason this couldn't be the thing that appears in, that relates to the characters from the MCU. Like, I could make up a brand new name for this, but why not make that brand new name this thing, so that if
Right.
people are coming in or they're picking up the collected edition, they say, oh, I know what that is.
Yeah.
Uh, but story always has to come first. Like if it's a square peg in a round hole, you throw that puzzle out, in my opinion. But when it fits, and we all benefit.
Yeah. Well, we've been talking a lot about Scarlet Witch, and rightfully so, because it's fantastic. But another series that you are on right now, currently, is with Mad Cave. Will your Exorcist Never Die? Like, tell me about that a little bit.
Listen, Mad Cave is up and coming. If folks are not looking at that publisher, they should be looking at it. They reached out to me years ago, which is when I started working on Exorcist Never Die. And the reason it's taken a minute is because it's like, for folks who've read the book, Sebastian Perez is drawing it. Sebastian does everything outside of lettering himself. And it's a gorgeous book. So it has taken a minute to get out there, but I'm extremely proud of it. And for folks wondering what it is, like if you read my Midnighter run and you wanted there to be like a little more of the Exorcist in there, it is the Raid meets the Exorcist. It with like a Sousant to be again a jackass of like Final Fantasy. Like it is about combat exorcists that perform god flows, which are my version or our version rather of like the gun kata from Equilibrium. But instead of making you Christian Bale dodging bullets, it allows you to channel the powers of a variety of angels from outside our mortal reality. So within the world of Exorcists Never Die, technically heaven and hell are not supposed to physically propagate on Earth. However, as usual, only heaven's following the rules. So combat exorcists are folks who are channeling the power of angels to punch literal demons right in the face. In the case of Exorcist Never Die specifically, they are raiding the Hellscraper, which is a I won't say skyscraper. It's a building going straight down, pointing towards hell underneath Los Angeles. And our leads have to fight to the bottom to stop a soul auction where thousands and thousands of souls are on the block. And gorgeous, as I said, gorgeous art by Sebastian Perez. I'm just so lucky that he came on. I couldn't imagine the book without him. Yeah. And like I said, for Midnighter readers, also for folks who followed me on the poll at TKO, it's got very much that sort of frenetic action energy.
Yeah, man, you're so right about Mad Cave because they're great. And as someone who does interviews and reviews, their hub for us as reviewers and stuff is fantastic. And I remember just scrolling through at one point and like, because they put stuff up there, PDFs up there sometimes before they even like promote too much outward. And I'm like, wait, that's a Steve Orlando book. Let's go. So instantly was pulling down those PDFs.
But no, if folks haven't been sure about Mad Cave, like check them out. They're doing kick-ass work. It's not, and it doesn't have to be shit that I did, by the way. Like if you know, like if you've got your little voodoo or like rather, or pardon me, like you're like if you're wishing me to get struck by lightning, the good news is that many other amazing creators work at Mad Cave too. So like regardless of what your flavor is, there's great stuff there. If you're into YA stuff, their Maverick line is killer. They're just doing great books and they treat us amazingly. It's like top to bottom, like a boon for the industry. So please do check them out.
That's great. You always love it when you do hear that publishers are doing it the right way by creators. And so that's great to hear. I'm not even gonna say like what do you have coming up, like surprise me because I looked at the previews. I see what you're coming up, like holy buckets. How do you even have time for this interview? Because you've got stuff from Vault, you've got stuff from Aftershock, you've got more Marvel stuff, you've got your Mad Cave still going on. Like, how do you do it?
I'm very good at scheduling, my friend. Like it is well, like that's a joke answer, but it's also not a joke answer. Like yeah. I was mentored to. This is a creative job, and it's one of the best you can have. Being able to be creative and make a living is a privilege. Even if it's one that you've worked hard to earn, it's still a privilege. And when I was like 12 years old, my mentor told me to treat this thing like a job, or it was never going to be one. So. I tend to work like a pretty normal schedule, as if I was in an office or something, but of course my office is in my house. And I get that stuff out there. And honestly, like I probably work less than, I work a lot, but like there are peers, like this is out of my ass, by the way, so if this is incorrect, but I feel like J. Michael Straczynski gave an interview when I was younger about how he writes like from like 8 a.m. to like 10 p.m, with like a sandwich break. And like, I tend to usually work from about 8 or 9 to like 5 or 6, like a relatively normal person.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, yeah, like, as I said, this is a great job. It's the job I've always wanted to have. So, yeah, like, if anything, I wish I could like clone myself to get, if you saw my whiteboard, there are so many more ideas I want to get out there. But like I said, it's a privilege, and
Yeah.
you have to enjoy it. It is work. I'm not going to sit here and be like, I wake up on some sort of lyre and like ambrosia's falling down.
Oh, that
Uh,
doesn't happen? Oh man. I've
well,
been
they're not.
lied to.
I know. Well, not in Boston, Massachusetts, at least. But yeah, they're just throwing fucking lobsters at me. But lobsters are not as comfortable. No, like everyone's got a job.
Yeah.
This is one of the best jobs in the world, and I'm lucky to have it. So I'm going to try to do it as much as I can because I fucking love it. Like there is no other. There's not a sexy, cool answer. I'm not going to be here and Grant Morrison you and like I mean, Grant is one of my idols, but I'm not going to be here and say that I'm like channeling wizardry from the fucking inspiration dimension. That's what Grant is there for. I'm here to say this is an amazing job that I have worked for 2/3 of my life for, and I'm going to do it as much and as often as I can.
That's awesome. Steve, I could talk to you for hours about comics and about everything. I mean, we talked for hours that felt like before this interview too, because you're just so much fun to talk to. If people are watching this and like they're checking out Scarlet Witch, which is still out, couple things you got coming up that you'd really like to have people check out.
Sure. Well, one of them is hard to talk about, but I will say to watch announcements. I wish it was announced so I could just be like, bam. But there is a book that I've been working on legitimately since 2018 that is finally coming out, I think, in October and November. Details TBD, but listen, this is the work of my career in many ways. I'm trying to like talk around the facts, but like, we have a cover by an industry legend that I never thought I would ever get to work with for the direct market edition of this book. I couldn't say who it is, but he certainly is the creator of Young Boy from Hell. And we have interiors by Alberto Ponticelli, which I'm spoiling, but it doesn't really matter because, of course, nobody knows what book it is yet. That is doing incredible, incredible work. And then we have a whole different presentation for the book market. But it's a book. Listen, this isn't a superhero book. This is a book that I like physically worked my hands over. A book that I was on the scene after Hurricane Michael doing disaster relief to do research for. I have physically put my life into this book for the past 5 years, and I'm extremely excited for it to finally be coming out. Like, I wish I could say more. We can even talk about it when we're off the record, but like, it's finally out in October. Folks will know what it is because I'll be chiming about the past 5 years of my life once it's out. So watch The Fall for sure. And then, of course, we have Astonishing Iceman, which is coming out. And I'm really, really excited. I mean, look, again, talk about the bucket list. Jesus Saiz on covers, Vincenzo Caruto on interiors, who in a couple of years are going to be talking about him like we talk about Pepe Larraz, like we talk about RB Silva. He's doing incredible work. He's only been drawing comics since I think 2015 or 2016. It's fucking wild. Incredible work there. And the really exciting thing is the Hellfire Gala finally comes out tomorrow. So this is potentially the last interview where I will say, you got to read the Hellfire Gala and then we can talk about it. But I will say it is Iceman in a situation, Fall of X. I can't obviously spoil what happens in the gala, but I will say that it is uniquely suited for an Iceman spotlight because after Fall of X, there are more rules, more restrictions, and more things in the planet and even in the solar system, thanks to Arakko, the mutants aren't allowed to do. But the thing about Iceman is him is specifically going back to the original like X-Men number or Uncanny X-Men #1. He's a class clown. A class clown is someone who acts out. A class clown is someone who doesn't do what he's supposed to do, usually to get a laugh out of other people, aka make them happy. So when the world doesn't says mutants, you can't do this, you can't be here, above even all the other mutants, it's Iceman that says, I'm going to be here twice as hard, I'm going to do twice as much, and I'm going to be twice as heroic. So it'll all make more sense after tomorrow, or maybe after yesterday, depending on when this podcast comes out after the Hellfire Gala. But what I will say and what I'm excited for people to see is that, listen, it is a hard time for mutants coming up, but that is exactly when Iceman gets in the clutch and he's at his most heroic because he never wants to do anything more than what someone in authority tells him he can't do. So I'm extremely proud of that book. And yeah, he's going to be doing wild shit, of course. But it's also just a beautiful portrait of what makes him special, which is, again, the behind the powers and the feats and all those things. To me, that's what makes me love these books. So even though it's going to be a hard time for mutants, it's going to be a great time for Iceman because he's going to show up and show out and fuck the world who says he's not allowed to. That's when he does his best work.
So good. Ah, so excited to, like I said, you have become a writer of mine that I absolutely, when I see your name on a book, I pick it up. And so, gang, if you're watching or listening via the podcast, make sure you go check it out. Steve, where can people follow along so to hear about these announcements that drop? Because you're pretty
Oh,
active, it seems like, on social media.
um, oh, it depends what my deadlines are like. But I'm on everything at the Steve Orlando. I don't really do Facebook is my personal space, so if folks have messaged me there, there's a disclaimer on my page. I apologize if I haven't got back to you. That is where I only do personal stuff. But the good news is that on Twitter and now on Blue Sky and now on Threads and also on Instagram, I'm always the Steve Orlando. I'm waiting to see who wins like the Hunger Games of Twitter like apps. But I'm on all of them, and I'd be happy to talk there.
Nice. So, yeah, Steve, it's been a blast. Gang, go check out Scarlet Witch that's out right now. Go get ready for Iceman. All these other books that we've been talking about and that are coming up. It's been a delight as always to just talk about comics with you, Steve.
Hell yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah. So until next time, gang, hopefully you can find some time to curl up, grab a book, and nerd out.